This video is a bit of a departure from our typical monthly best of videos because we left Bonaire for about a month between mid-July and mid-August. Among other things, we went on a family cruise to Alaska where we did see some amazing sea life, but that isn't what this channel is about. It's about warm tropical waters, and we have lots to share. We still have a month's worth of highlights. It's just that this includes the first half of July and the back half of August. Let's dive in. This collection has 9 first-time captures, several of which have come from night dives. The orange and white blob crawling along this slab in the shallows is a warty pleurobranch. It's a kind of sea slug and was fairly easy to spot at around 3 inches. On the other hand, I consider myself very lucky to have spotted this harlequin glass slug, which was only about 1 inch long and had a mostly translucent body with some terrific burgundy highlights. Sticking with transparency for a bit, this orange marginella caught our eye as it crawled along the top of a coral head. It was even smaller than the harlequin glass slug, so I switched over to the +15 close-up lens where you can really see the depth of coloring in the shell. The orange bands and black dots appear embedded deep under a thick glossy coat. This one went by super quick, so we'll slow it down and play it twice. As I was filming a beaded sea cucumber, this bright yellow circled bumblebee shrimp appeared from underneath and crawled down the sea cucumber into a hole. It was spectacular. Our final first-time nighttime capture was sadly just a shell, but it was still pretty cool, not only for its shape, but its name as well. This is a reaper murex shell. Not sure why it's called that, don't care, love the name. We'll open the daytime first-time captures with this blenny Leslie found at the base of a coral head. This little guy is a ringed shy blenny complex. We couldn't find a good definition around the complex part. Put another way, why isn't this just a ringed shy blenny? If you can point us to a good source describing the difference between blennies and blenny complexes, please leave us a comment below. The next one seems like it isn't possible to have made almost 500 dives on Bonaire without seeing it. This is a black grunt. I just thought it was an odd-looking French grunt with black instead of yellow lines, or perhaps a sailor's choice with solid lines instead of rows of spots. After a bit of double-checking, this was a new fish for us. Yay! On the crustacean front, this delicate swimming crab was just about invisible because it blended perfectly with the sandy shallows. It was also quite small. That carapace was only 1 inch in diameter. If it hadn't moved when we were swimming by, we never would have seen it. Finally, this is a worm snail. Technically, it is a first-time capture because we haven't filmed them before, but we should mention that we see them fairly often when we get very close to the reef. Recently, we got curious about what they are, and they are fascinating. It turns out they generate fine threads of sticky mucus that collectively form a trap to catch tiny organisms floating by with the current. Then, they pull the entire net into their mouth for a buffet. Kind of an incredible way to find food if you're a stationary snail fixed to the reef, right? Leading off the behavior section is this hitchhiking shrimp. I noticed it as I was adjusting my lights on a July night dive, so I moved the light in front of my camera. It stayed there for over 10 minutes, and to be honest, I was a little sad when it finally left. That is, until I went back to that same site for an August night dive, and I noticed the same animal, this time on my hand. I assume it was the same one, and that we bonded over being redheads. So far, I haven't been able to identify what kind they are. So if you know of a source with more information, drop us a note below. Another cute interaction we had was watching this brittle star, or rather a brittle star arm, trying to pull a gigantic piece of fruit into its home. It seemed like an aspirational goal, but hey, shoot for the stars, my friend. Leslie and I were fortunate enough to spend some time with a common octopus and barjack hunting team one morning. Neither seemed bothered by us hanging around, so we decided to watch them in action. And boy, was there action. As the octopus enveloped a rock in an attempt to capture anything hiding around or underneath, a small creature escaped and bolted over to another hiding place a few feet away. Did you see it? That barjack sure did. It took exactly 30 frames, or half a second, for that jack to turn 180 degrees, dive in, and scoop up a little snack. Those things are like underwater lightning. If you've seen a few of our other highlight videos, you know we capture mating activity from time to time. On one dive, we saw a couple of princess parrotfish swimming in tandem over the reef, and noticed every once in a while they would lock beaks and rise into the water column. Sorry for the pixelated footage here. I had the wrong lens selected at first, but wanted to show that we saw this activity for several minutes. Here's a better view after I got my camera settings corrected. In this encounter, after they rise up, you can see two clouds being released, which I assume are sperm and eggs. We are now consistently seeing yellowhead jawfish with eggs in the shallows. It takes patience, but if you approach slowly, you can get pretty close. This clip is literally 8 minutes long, and while we started way back here, we ended up here for a pretty nice, albeit quick, egg aeration. These next few aeration clips are from the same jawfish, but later in the afternoon. The bait balls have continued all summer as well. On one particular dive, we saw 3 different schools. This first one was very close to shore, in about 10 to 15 feet of water, and it was the smallest one we saw that day. The second was a little further out, between 20 and 25 feet of water. It was about 3 times larger than the first one we saw, and we were super excited to even see a second bait ball at all. But it got even better with a massive school hanging out between 35 and 50 feet. That one was the most fun to watch because it was being corralled by all sorts of predators, including barjacks, creole jacks, rainbow runners, and at least one barracuda. As if that weren't enough, I noticed a spot-winged comb jelly drifting through the chaos. And this western comb grouper was taking advantage of the cover by hanging out below the bait ball. Speaking of large schools, we've shown long trails of needlefish before, but they aren't the only fish that travel in such a manner. In fact, we have a meta tag specifically called Creature Highway, so we can find all the clips easily. This creole wrasse convoy clip is over 2 minutes long and shows what appears to be a never-ending stream traveling across the reef. They're all going somewhere, just not sure where. Yes, we know music flutes are kind of a recurring theme in these videos, and one day we'll make a great addition to the tattoo collection. But take a moment to appreciate the sheer strength and leverage needed to move this giant piece of wood while crawling over sand. We were lucky enough to witness a West Indian fighting conch mating event last fall, and we stumbled across another one in August. We counted over a dozen on the sea floor, with several more below the surface. What was different this year is that a number of them had sizable sea life growing on the top of their shell, which could mean that either they never really fully buried themselves, or at least haven't fully buried themselves in a while. Either way, there were quite a few egg casings in the immediate vicinity, and we did catch one of the conchs in the process of making one. It's pretty awesome to see something like that. We hope this last behavior clip isn't the start of anything major, but they are predicting warmer temperatures this fall, and this is one of the first plates of sheet coral that seems to be starting the bleaching process. We'll show any more progress in next month's video. Keep your fingers crossed. This rusty goby kicks off our uncommon sea life section. We saw it pop out from under a rocky ledge a few times and got a bit closer to see what it was. They normally hang out on the ceiling. Even the reference book we use not only had a picture of it upside down, but the line drawing highlighting its physical features was also upside down. We last showed an ornate chiton in September 2023, so it's been about a year. Another reason for showing this one is that we actually caught it crawling. We rarely see chitons moving. This one goes back even further, to 2021, when we made the Hilma Hooker Shore Dive Collection video. So this was our second leather-backed platydoris, and it was gorgeous. At most, it was 2 inches long and was definitely the highlight of the night. But it wasn't the only nudibranch we saw that evening, because we also saw this lynx phidiana. We haven't seen one of those in over a year either. It was a bit harder to spot because it was much smaller, and the coloring blended in better with the surrounding terrain. What a great dive that was. Mangrove upside-down jellies are a bit more common, although it's been about 6 months since we've seen one on the west side of the island. They are much more common over on the east side. We do find nimble spray crabs from time to time, but they can be hard to shoot because A, they are quite skittish, and B, they like to stay in the cracks between the corals, which presents challenges with focus, lighting, and line of sight if there is any sort of current or surge. Those 2 yellow things popping up between its eyes are interesting, but we couldn't find any information about what those are used for. We would also like to take a minute to highlight the white mermaid's wine glass, which is not so much uncommon as it is underappreciated and perhaps unnoticed. You have to be fairly close to the reef, as they are tiny, often between 1/4 and 1/2 an inch in diameter. Despite white in the name, they fall into the green algae category. They don't appear in close clusters, but if you find one, chances are there are a few others in the area. Back to truly uncommon animals, I believe this is a rather dark Atlantic gray cowrie, which was speeding along the reef on one of our night dives. It is amazing to see how fast snails can move when they want to. So, here's a fun one for me, but others might find it a bit scary/creepy. Occasionally, bloodworms make an appearance on our night dives. More often than not, they're small, but they can get quite long. Case in point, this bad boy, which, if I had to guess, was about 18 inches end to end. It kept swimming toward my lights, so I had to backpedal to try and keep it in focus. And while we're sharing scary things, we came across this turtle grazing in the shallows and noticed a huge chunk missing from its left side. It looks like it survived a shark attack and is an extraordinary example of sea life resilience. Another example is this trumpetfish, which appears to have overcome and adapted to the trauma of a missing tail. We hope you enjoyed our combined highlights. And now, instead of plugging our YouTube channel, we invite you to check out and consider subscribing to Leslie's Instagram account. With her new mirrorless camera, she's cranking out even more spectacular images. You can find her at TropicLeslie on Instagram. Thanks! Smiley face.